Hi, Sunshine. So today I would like to speak about addictions. Following up from my previous video where I did the forecast for 2025 and understanding that the first few months of the year would be greatly used for self-reflection and mapping out to make the necessary changes for the rest of the year, I think addictions and letting go of the underlying causes and reasons for them would be part of that process and a very necessary step to consider. And for this reason, I wanted to make this video to give you a little bit more information of how they play out in life and how we can go about them. So addictions, any type of addiction, they only refer to our own emotional imprisonment. And any addiction is only a coping mechanism for us to find belonging. So I would like for us to take a look at addiction from this perspective, or shall we say Asaman philosophy perspective, of how you can look at them and also help you having this understanding and this perspective, which is ultimately about you experiencing emotional independence and finding the place where you belong. And I also have here in front of me my laptop with some notes to keep you on track. And I have this cute whiteboard, which I hope it stays there in place and doesn't fall over, where I can write some things down, just so I can look cooler, since this topic may not sound as cool and fun to some of you. So let's put here the topic of the day is addictions. And the goal would be emotional independence. I don't know if you can really see anything, but I'm just gonna keep it here for now and continue my scrabbles. And of course, it can be much easier said than done to achieve that state of emotional independence and freedom. But at the end of the day, what freedom is all about, freedom, or to be free, we need to be responsible. Freedom needs responsibility. Without responsibility, we cannot have freedom. And here I speak about being responsible for our own needs, for our own emotional needs. Many times we were not having our needs met when we grew up. Maybe we were never allowed to express what we need. And what I recognize, especially in my work with people, that it's very difficult to even navigate and to voice out these needs, let alone allow ourselves and give ourselves permission to seek them out and seek to experience them for ourselves in relationships and just in any situation in life. So our main responsibility, first and foremost, becomes creating awareness to what our needs are. Those are not things that we want and desire, those are needs. Usually in my workshops, which actually I'm going to have this month, we're going to do a practice where we dive deeper into these subconscious needs to help us connect to these deeper parts of ourselves and get that awareness. I mean, that's going to one part of the workshops. The other part would be using your natal and birth chart to navigate and point to them. But again, it all comes down to this is a process of you taking responsibility and being willing to look at them and understand what those needs are. And when we don't want to look at those needs, which are oftentimes overburdened by painful experiences, then what happens is that we end up going on in life being imprisoned in our own unmet emotional needs. And this is probably one of the most torturous and painful experiences we can have. Because if we look at addictions, again, regardless what the type of addiction is, here I'm not really concerned whether that's to drugs, sex, fantasies, food, whatever it is. At the root, the cause for any kind of addiction is emotional pain, or pain we have experienced due to certain events or circumstances. But again, this is emotional pain. It's something very deep that oftentimes we don't recognize and realize on the surface or through our limited consciousness and awareness. It's a process that we need to really explore and dive much deeper into. And since the last video that I made about 2025 forecast, where we're going to go through a process of deconstruction and reconstruction of the self for the second part of the year, I wanted to make this video to help you be in that state and take on that path of self-empowerment. And here we speak a lot about the self. And sometimes I have these comments where, well, that's very selfish of just being focused on self, self, self. Yes, I agree that's not the meaning and that's not the purpose of life. But unless we start taking responsibility for the self, then everything else in our lives begins to deteriorate. So the self is the first part of the reconstruction process. And if we look at self-empowerment, what is self-empowerment? It is pretty much empower. Whoops, I lost my, yep. It's pretty much the power or the ability, your power and your ability to look through the pain. Not to avoid it, not to escape through it, to have the power and the courage to face it and look at those painful, emotional burdens. To have the courage and be able to sit with it, to feel it, and be patient enough, because eventually, the more you sit with that discomfort, the more you sit with that pain, you begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel. It begins to reveal to you the answer of what you have been looking for. Because on the opposite side of pain lies, if we have pain, lies joy. But joy is found through meaning and self, not even awareness only, self essence. And God, this writing is so ugly. I don't know if it's very helpful, but again, I'll just keep it here for now. And I say self essence because the more we try to leave and run away from the pain, the further we are from being and living as ourselves. So this approach is not leading us anywhere. And you know how we speak about self-awareness, higher consciousness, authenticity being the highest vibration. And yes, these states, they are the result of somebody going on their own spiritual journey or spiritual path. Yet this freedom of mind, it really comes with having the courage to sit with and see beyond the pain preventing us of being and seeing ourselves. And as I said, when you sit long enough with that pain, you end up discovering where is that place where you belong. But that's not a process that happens overnight. Maybe in some very, very rare cases it can, rarely it does. And when we speak about belonging, usually belonging is not necessarily connected to the family you grew up in, or your friends, or a group of circles or cliques. It's belonging to creation, to the creator, to the divine in you, which is the whole meaning and idea of Asaman, the divine in me. And again, this truth, it's something hidden. Usually people connect to it through their intuition, through meditation, when you fall in love. This is how you become aware of this. And when you invest in self-knowledge, what helps is, again, methods and esoteric practices, spiritual practices that help you derive to it. I use Asaman astrology since it's a very easy way to navigate to the same essence and the same idea. My point here is that this is what we ultimately seek to become aware of, our resources and our divine creation. And like my teacher once wrote, you cannot walk forward with eyes turned backwards. So the more we are imprisoned by our own emotions and we use addiction as a coping mechanism, we are still attached to pain in the past. And every time when we are attached to pain in the past, we cannot truly move forward. We can make actions in the world outside of us, change relationships, change jobs, but eventually those patterns are still going to repeat until we clear up that past pain. You can see this very easily in relationships, especially. Sometimes you have a relationship disaster and everything falls apart and it's easy to blame the other person. Meanwhile, you exit that relationship, you enter into a new one, and you start experiencing exactly the same patterns. So that means there is still something underneath that needs to be cleared up, because it doesn't matter what person enters your life, you're still replaying some past emotional pain that still hasn't been transformed and transcended from. So these relationships and dynamics are pretty much our teachers to show us through that reflection of where we are still at, and if we choose to repeat those same patterns or we choose to change them. And for a moment, I would like for us to take a look at addictions, because they all come in different forms. For example, some can be addicted to sex and fantasies, which in reality, again, you don't really experience to that same extent and degree. Others can be addicted to drugs and substances. Others can be addicted to food. This is another way as a coping mechanism. Others can be addicted to groups of people. For example, groups of people are a great way to distract us from our own pain. And as much as friends and having a support group is really important, which I'm going to go over later, sometimes when we are afraid of being ourselves and expressing our individuality, we can use groups of people, and constantly being somewhere with someone, try to avoid and escape that moments of solitude and moments for introspection and reflection. Another thing, and I want to make this very clear, I love how in some teachings they say love is an addiction. I want to say it's the yearning for love and not love itself that it can be addictive. Love, when we have you, me, it doesn't matter. When we have love in our lives, it is an inspiring experience because it is shared. That is not something to be addictive because we live it. This is our natural human right to love and to feel loved and be loved and live in that inspired state. When we say somebody is addicted to love, that can be, let's say you were in love with someone. That love either disappeared, left your life, and you're left with this like yearning for that person, or that person that gave you a sense of feeling love. At the end, the yearning for love feels painful. So that pain is what is addictive. Love itself and having love for another person, that is not addictive. That is something inspiring. And we end up confusing this so much, and this creates this perception in people that I'm afraid to fall in love and I'm afraid to love. The yearning for love is painful, but understanding that there is nothing more profound and inspiring than to love another human being and to be loved and to feel loved. And this yearning for love, let's say if that was some sort of unrequired, yes, or unlived romantic or love experience, maybe it was not reciprocated. Maybe the other person didn't have the same feelings for you. And because it was not reciprocated, it creates a need, a yearning, a longing for that, for being loved or feeling loved. So not love itself is painful. The yearning part causes pain. But when we start understanding that when we love something in someone, our own feelings, our own expression of love, it is what belongs to us. Nobody can take that away from us. And if we create it for person A, we can create it for person B, C, and so on. Love is something infinite, it's abundant. In no way, shape, and form that can cause addiction or pain. Only if we have allowed ourselves to give, and nothing is being reciprocated back, then we become depleted. And this is where we need to learn how I can still love another human being, but if that's not reciprocated, then I'm not going to torture myself and allow myself to come into that place of yearning if they don't feel the same way, because ultimately then I would be responsible for causing myself my own pain. Why comes this whole saying, if you love someone, then let them go, because if you guys are not going in the same direction and that love doesn't have an outlet of expression, eventually it turns into nothing. And if the other person doesn't feel the same way about you, the way you do, then yes, even though in that immediate, which I'm going to speak a lot in a little bit, in that immediate moment, it's going to be discomfort and you're going to feel for some time pain, because you cannot possess and control something you love. Eventually, if you love it and then don't feel the same way back for you, then your choice is to give them the freedom and let them go. And although, again, in that first instance, it might feel like this immediate discomfort because there would be a change, in the long run, that choice comes with clarity, and clarity always brings peace and healing. Whereas if we choose not to let them go and hold on to them, and not just physically, sometimes we hold on to things emotionally, mentally, and so on, then we are the ones that choose and sign up for experiencing pain, because we make the choice of delayed discomfort. In a little bit, I'm going to go over this. So again, my whole point here is that we are not addicted to any of these things. These are not the addictions. Sex, drugs, food, groups of people, yearning for love, these are coping mechanisms. Therefore, I'm not so much concerned about the type of coping mechanism. I'm concerned more about the underlying root cause for these coping mechanisms, which is the pain we or you or me, I had to go through my own process, we are avoiding. What is the nature of that pain? Again, that's a process which we are going to take a look at in the workshops I have upcoming this month. And it's a very deep internal process that usually require us to connect back to parts of ourselves we have often forgotten, experiences that might have happened when we were very little or in childhood, or events that left such a impact and imprint on us that we have neglected, but it doesn't mean it still doesn't play a part in our reality and experience today. And for those who like to use astrology as a tool, that's why I created the Cure course, where we or you can help yourself navigate to those points and events which you can see in your own birth chart. Usually they are shown by the Saturn, Lilith, and Chiron placements. So you can check out the Cure course if you want to have a head start on this, or you can have an individual consultation where you can learn more about when these events happened, how did they impact you psychologically and emotionally, what was the reason for them to happen, because even though they're painful, they're part of your own life's learning journey. And unless we start perceiving them as necessary lessons, we would forever want to run away from and escape that pain, which again, as I already mentioned, causes addictions or being addicted to pain. So actually, we're not addicted to these things. These are just coping mechanisms. Majority of people are simply addicted to pain. And the addiction to pain and also the severity of that addiction is directly proportional to you having a vision or hope of what else can take place there. What is there to live as the cure or to heal that pain? Because once you have a hope, a meaning, a purpose, a vision, it becomes your source of inspiration. But when you don't have that source of inspiration, you become addicted to pain. And sometimes when we look at psychology, we use so much terminology and things that can just complicate us so much. At the end of the day, things are much more simple. When we don't have a source of inspiration, what we have is addiction. Addiction to pain or addiction to lack of inspiration. Sometimes, yes, even if the pain never fully goes away, it still does not need to have so much power over you and take control over your own life when you know how to replace the coping mechanism with healing activism. I like to call it this way because it rhymes. From coping mechanism to healing activism. And if we look at the word healing activism, it's something that sounds a lot more purposeful and meaningful. And this is definitely a long life journey, a journey of transition and transformation and really transforming into that vision. Imagine up until now, without a vision, you were waking up and the first thing in the morning is to take a line of Coke. It's something that you thought you needed to help you to move yourself throughout the day. And now the healing activism or the action that can replace that behavior is to, let's say, wake up in the morning and go for a jog to get you energized and to help you move throughout your day. But now here comes the question, and that's why it's difficult to get to that awareness. Why? Why shall I wake up in the morning, put clothes on, go out, especially if it's winter in the cold, and run? Whereas staying at home and having a line of Coke is so much easier and faster and a quicker way for me to get that kick. So the important question becomes why? Why shall you do that? And that is the thing. Without a why, no one will ever be inspired to make any change. And the only answer to this question, why, lives in you. When you start to recognize your reason and purpose for being here and stop living on autopilot, stop living according to things you were expected to do or a way you were expected to be. But even for that awareness, you need some time and space in solitude for yourself and to address and observe the pain, prevent you to see what lies behind it and what are your true resources and abilities, because I definitely know, and not just believe, but know that they live in you and they exist. They are just hidden and buried very deep within you, and it's almost like you're going on a hunt for diamonds where you have to like dig deep underground, carve them out, until you get to those precious resources and start extracting them and then using them and applying them for something meaningful and purposeful in life. And I like to see myself as being in the role of the person who is the, and I don't know if this is the right title, but a mining expert, somebody who likes to dig deep and dive into finding these rough diamonds. Because ultimately, and at the end of the day, your reason and purpose is not defined by your actions. Your actions can help to support your reason and purpose here. But your reason and purpose is defined by you and who you are and what you stand for in this life, what you represent. You are a divine being carrying your own individual valuable resources. Resources that you're here to provide and serve with in this life. And the thing or the bug here comes is that we often grow up not being aware of what they are. And where we're not aware of what our resources are, our resources end up being misused or abused over time, or unused altogether. And of course, you can imagine when something is misused and abused, it feels pain. And your own unwillingness to become aware of that pain, to sit with it, it causes dependencies on different coping mechanisms. And most often, what I realize is that people are even oblivious to their own pain. Do you know how many times I see people that are hurting on the inside, but they project that image on the inside of like, I'm happy, life is great, I'm strong. Then if that's the case, why do you wake up taking a line of cocaine? And I'm not judging the behavior that you're taking the drug. What my goal is here is to, if those are your behaviors, then there is something underneath that you're hurting. But I cannot force you to face it unless you're willing to go there. I can only guide you to what it is and how to get there. But this is why I say that in so many instances, I see just people being oblivious to their own pain. You have a coping mechanism, any kind of coping mechanism that just signals that there is some illusion about joy and happiness. If you're truly joyful, you will not need that. I mean, okay, food, we all need to eat, meaning that it would not get to the point where we become so overweight. And weight, that means it's a having so much weight on us, that means there is a protective mechanism. There is a lot of emotional burdens. So through food, we're just escaping of facing that. So we're just bearing more on top of it. But technically, no human being needs to eat so much. There is a difference between eating enough so we can live and function versus overeating and indulging as a coping mechanism to escape from uncomfortable emotions. And believe me, from most of these topics, I do speak from personal experience because I myself had to face. I mean, there were moments where I did definitely suppress my emotional discomfort through food, shopping, fantasies. Never been too much into drugs, but smoking, alcohol. I mean, you name it and you pick it. Longing, oh, this for sure. Groups, everybody, I mean, myself included, I'm guilty of that as well. So when I speak about this right now, it's not in any kind of way my attempt to judge anybody, but because I understand and I've had to face the underlying reasons for my own behaviors. And maybe there is still more to work through. I definitely know that this is not a one-way process. I mean, things that we see physically as a coping mechanism, in the instance with, let's say, drugs, foods, things like that, it might be much more easier to navigate through because you see it. You see the coping mechanism. The most difficult would be to deal with the psyche and the fantasies, which many times play out through these sexual desires and fantasies. So again, this can play out in different number of ways. The important thing is to not be oblivious, because when we are oblivious, and this can also be observed through behavior patterns, the language use and the way people speak, and also your own emotional reactions to things. And we become used to coping with the pain in this way, or addictive coping mechanisms that helps us escape the pain, or through fake connections that serve to distract us or give us a illusionary sense of belonging, rather than having a vision of something more meaningful to put your energy towards, which also gives you back. And what that meaning or vision or direction gives you back, it gives you joy. And it's not that loud out there joy, like ha ha ha, life is great. It's more about internally feeling at peace with yourself. When you find that harmony within your thoughts, your feelings, and your body, and you're at peace with yourself, it is a very stable internal joy. No, not an overhyped and over exaggerated or portrayed sense of joy. So at the end of the day, we do feel better when we have a purpose and direction where we are exerting our energy towards. Because it is about creating something that we feel deeply internally connected to. And I want to mention here about these fake connections. I see this so often, especially with people that, everybody is my friend. You go out to parties and events, but meanwhile, in order for you to be present there and to be connected, you take a bunch of substances and drugs to be there. So energetically, if you take a look at it, it's a place of gathering, of everybody sharing their own pain, but not sharing it as a way to heal it, but as a way to escape from it. So in one way, yes, it is, everybody's connected through the escapism tendencies, but they're not connected based on true core values and principles. Because if you truly want to be in that place and connect with these people, then you would not need to use these substances in order to communicate with them, in order to enjoy the party or enjoy the music. And look, there is nothing wrong with gatherings and wanting to go out and connect with people and having fun. But when everybody is under some influence, then no real connection takes place. So here it becomes the question of, am I truly interested in those people? Am I curious to learn something from them and about them? Why am I going? Because in most of the cases, this overhyped joy and excitement and fun and party is just an excuse to distract us from our own internal and emotional pain. And what I would like to see is more gatherings and groups of people and communities formed on the idea, how can we be together, how can we enjoy the music and have fun and connect based on our own desire and willingness to be here and to learn from each other, rather than using coping mechanisms to help us show up differently. How can we show up as ourselves and start expressing what we are truly passionate about, what we want to create? And I think this would be one important thing going into the future, because true connections would be formed based on what we truly want to create in this life, and finding the people that share a similar vision with you. Because when you want to create something together, you would also need to look at your own shared values. And from here, you can build valuable and meaningful connections and relationships, and not just use interactions and relationships as a way to, again, escape from that internal discomfort. But that's going to be part of the future evolution of humanity. So maybe once, if you watch this video in 2 years, that information is gonna sit with you a little bit differently. So coming back to something I already mentioned, when we speak about addictions, it comes down to one of two choices: choosing immediate discomfort or delayed discomfort. And the one thing we need to realize that we cannot avoid discomfort. Eventually, we're all going to face discomfort. This is part of our own learning journey and growth in life. Let's say when you are a little baby, you need to deal with the discomfort of teething, whereas as an adult, you might need to deal with different kind of circumstances and discomfort. Maybe now you have to face restructuring your whole life in reality because you want to do the work that you love, which is going to require a lot of changes and shifts. Again, the situations would be different, but there still would need to be discomfort faced, because it's just part of the natural growth process and changes in life. Because discomfort is inevitable. And this decision, choosing between immediate or delayed discomfort, it all comes down to will, or personal will. And what helps is when we have a vision or clear perception of ourselves, regardless of where you are at right now. Now, part of spiritual teachings guide us to focus on the present moment, on here and now. Yet there is a deeper part in each one of us that knows, even if it's vaguely, that knows we came from something much bigger, and then there is a place for us that is much bigger or brighter or infinite or something that's beyond. And it's not our conscious mind that knows that, it's our soul that knows that. So we can still be here and now, but we can also take apart in this moment our vision of that beyond, the vision that inspires us to move forward, our hope for life, our meaning. And when we have that vision, the choice of choosing immediate discomfort is much easier. When there is no vision or meaning, and which is actually the result of no clear self-perception, then it's much easier to get driven by instant gratification, or so-called what it can be instantly received, something that's physical, tangible, material. So instant material, I even like to say the word, instead of gratification, greedification. That's where greed is born from. That instant gratification to provide that comfort or pleasurable feeling. And over time, this indulgence of seeking pleasurable feelings and avoiding the pain, it turns into an addiction, where you want more and more and more, and it feels never enough or never satisfying. And it continues to live on to fill up, or try to fill up, that inner lack of meaning or emotional void. But in the case where you choose, and I know you can, immediate discomfort, your will Your energy starts being directed towards justice. And what is just is your human right to be free, free from emotional burdens. And the reason why this is important, and you also come to that awareness, is because you realize that when you are emotionally burdened, then in your relationships and interactions with everyone else around you, it doesn't matter if it's your kids, lover, colleagues, usually plays out much more strongly in intimate environments. And then like a virus, your emotional burdens spread to everyone else around you. You just continue passing on to them. That's why I always recommend before you become a parent to take a look at clearing those burdens out, because you just unconsciously start spreading them out to your children. And this is what is called also karmic connections or karmic relationships. And they start with this very strong desire and chemistry, these overwhelming emotions, which pretty much signal that there are things that need to be worked through. But this is another topic. So coming back to choosing immediate discomfort and letting go of your addictions as a coping mechanism, there I would like to introduce you to a 3-step process to consider when you are choosing to go down that direction of immediate discomfort. Oh my God, this disaster here needs some cleaning. Let me clean this board and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So the first thing of choosing immediate discomfort, okay, let's write it this way. When we choose immediate discomfort and facing pain. I mean, people that start going on this healing, spiritual path, self-awareness journey, this is exactly what I'm speaking about here. You can name it in any way that sounds pleasant to your ear. So the first thing would be to make a decision. The decision to see beyond pain and fear. So even if you don't know where you're going, even if you don't have a vision yet or awareness of what is the whole purpose and meaning of this, here in this decision, and this year, this is going to be a very important part of this journey, would be to have courage to make this decision. It's like jumping into the unknown, invisible, and having the willingness and be open to learn and just be curious. What lies on the other side of pain and fear? What lies beyond the wall? The wall I have built. Such a pretty and chaotic wall. The second step would be environment. And this not only uncomfortable, I understand at the beginning it's also a painful process, because it would require in some cases to let go of your current environment. That could be your friends and family, and it's difficult to let go because we associate our whole sense of meaning and belonging with them. But when that environment is not supporting us in feeling empowered and feeling inspired, and it's not challenging us in some kind of way or feels encouraging to us, then we need to let go of it. We need to break the umbilical cord for a moment. Again, sometimes for some people, this is something that's necessary for your whole life, because the environment is just so toxic and painful and just unhealthy for the person. In some cases, it could be a few months or some years, but that needs to be change of environment for sure. So for example, if you're used to going to rave parties and everybody consuming drugs, you need to step away from that and choose an environment where you actually don't feel comfortable. Say party to through meditation. That's why when we see people in this process, you see somebody who was, we see the extremes, was first on one end of the spectrum, and then they go on the opposite end of the spectrum, and on the outside you think like something is wrong with them. No, nothing is wrong with them. That's just part of this process of recovering from pain until you find the balance, because again the whole idea is not to completely avoid parties nor to spend your entire life in meditation. No, that's not the goal here, but to find that balance you need to go through that process of completely changing the environment, especially going into an environment that's completely new for you, that's challenging and not comfortable. Because for example, if you were used to taking drugs and partying all day long, then you have to go almost into like this monk state with meditation, not taking any drugs, and trying to find connections with people and be able to speak with them without all of this noise and hype. This is just one example, but can play out in many different ways. Also, for example, you were in an environment, people just wanted to play video games all day long, had no aspirations, smoking weed. Then you're gonna start going to, okay, so here's like video games, some kind of business conferences. Like this is really gonna take you out of your comfort zone. Because you might feel like I have nothing to speak with these people about. The goal would be here not to associate yourself and be a part of that business conference dynamic. It's more about I'm curious to learn something new. I'm going to choose completely the opposite, so I allow myself to learn something new, a different approach. Let's say you might still continue eventually to play video games, but maybe this way you can learn how to make video games and make a business out of those video games. Same here. In this case, where somebody likes to take drugs and party, and then you start going through this meditation retreats, maybe you can start forming like these parties and communities where people connect in a healthy way together. Again, this is important to have that extreme and change of environment in order for each one of us to find balance. It all depends on where we are at now, where we currently start, to be able to direct of what's the polar opposite of that. Because that environment is going to push us to face our own discomfort, but because it challenges us, it's going to encourage us to grow too. And you're going to start recognizing when you change this environment, at first you would feel not very comfortable. You can feel nervous, feel almost like an outcast, and that it's difficult for you to fit in. But here the goal is not to try to fit in, it's not try to mold with them. It's more about, yes, you can find points of connection, but ask questions. Just ask questions, almost like a little child now it's learning to do life again, and explore and just inquire. So what are you doing here? What's going on? So can you please explain me this? And you'll see maybe there would be people who are not interested of interacting with you, but there would be always some people that will take the time to answer your questions or even guide you where you can read more about it, learn more, educate yourself. Again, this is a very key and important part of the process. Or in the opposite direction, for example, if right now you're currently and this might sound also like a terrible advice to some people, but you're having it's difficult for you to sexually express yourself or open up, or you don't know what you want. I would suggest, because I've seen a lot of these cases where a person is not sure sexually what they really want and like, and they grow up with the idea of, I need to be in a relationship, but ultimately they don't feel sexually satisfied there. I mean, this is probably a little bit more of a complex topic, which I will need a whole another video on that. But in this case, if there's some sexual doubts, unawareness, I would also recommend, and especially if you're much older. I mean, that's normal when you're 20 to still experiment and understand what you like and don't like. When you're much older, to actually do exactly the opposite. Go to sex parties and fetishes and really see what that reality looks like. What does it offer? Because you will be faced with the ability possibly of playing some of these things out and actually come to realize, wow, like this is really cool, and understand your freaking shadow side, or realize that that's completely disgusting and horrible, and it's a complete turn off for me. It's not arousing. Yes. But this is a whole different topic. Just wanted to give this as an example. Somebody who is very sexually repressed and closed, and you're an adult, then you might need to go into that other end of the spectrum. And God, I left no space for the third point. Let me do this in purple. Okay, so we have 1, 2. This looks like a natural disaster, whatever I'm doing. And then 3. So vision. Now that you are having this journey, you've made the decision, you've changing the environment, you are gaining more self-knowledge and awareness, you create a vision to keep in mind your vision for yourself. Because when you have that vision, you have that newfound experience and knowledge. Anytime you go through an experience and a discomfort shows up, you already can rely on yourself and the knowledge you have gained to support you to move through that discomfort, to face that pain. And just to make it clear, a vision is not a goal. That's not a goal. People often confuse these things and say, I need to have a goal plan or write down my goals. A vision is not a goal, because this vision is only created through self-knowledge. You can't really have the goal of being yourself. You can have the goal of dissolving illusions. So you can have the goal of letting go of all of this burdens and emotional pain and crap, so you can finally be you. The goal would be the actions needed, the goals, to live your vision. A vision is something that's a state. You just are. And or everything else that is not part of this vision, it's pretty much just like crutches that you're holding on to maintain that illusion and that current state. Crutches that you're using to cope with the pain. So when we speak about vision in that state, what does that you look like? Who you are? What are the people around you? What does that life look like? What are your interactions with people? What do you speak about? What are your relationships? What does to belong look like and feel like to you? And sometimes what we think right now is so influenced by our families, the way we grew up, by society, that we don't even allow ourselves or give ourselves permission to see beyond that and to see what is that truly resonates with us. The whole part of that vision is, it's not a place, and you're not with people because you have to be there, but because you choose to and you want to be there. It comes from a much more deeply rooted and profound and connected place. Again, now this sounds all too very general in Asaman astrology. Then that's where we start painting that vision and painting that picture, and kind of navigating through the vision of the relationships, or the vision of the home and family dynamic, and vision of the work that you do in the world, and also understanding that time and space are irrelevant. Yes, we are physically, our bodies are here for this particular time and space, and it's not about achieving necessarily, and that's why I say it's not a goal, achieving that vision or state, because it can happen in this lifetime, it can happen in next lifetime. That is completely irrelevant. But when every day we direct our actions and decisions and choices and thoughts towards embodying and living out that vision, then whatever time we live on in this lifetime, can be 20, 30, 40 years, then throughout that process, we live it with much more joy and peace inside. And the meaning is found when we learn to enjoy the process. I believe, maybe I'm gonna get the facts wrong here, but there was this Sumerian tribe back in the days where on their tombstones you would only be able to see like 6 lines or 7 lines. I vaguely remember it. I kind of took away from it more the meaning behind it. So on every tombstone there were written 5 lines or 6 lines or 7 lines, and somebody went there and asked, like, why did these people live such short lives? And so they explained to him that it's not that they lived short lives, it's only the number of years lived in joy that actually account for life. So I'm going to leave you with this here, and I will see you in the next video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, thoughts, share anything you want to share. Just keep the bad news to yourself, because I don't want to hear those. And I will see you in the next videos. Like, subscribe, share, so whoever you think might find this video useful and helpful. And Happy New Year to everybody. May you find the power within you in 2025. Until next time.